Cheryl Hall reporting. The state government announced this week who it's chosen to build and operate Australia's largest desalination plant at Wonthaggi. It also revealed it's agreed to act as a lender of last resort to shore up finance for the project, which will be a public-private partnership. Most of the detail, including financial aspects, hasn't been released. Water Minister Tim Holding wasn't available to speak to Stateline, but here's some of what he had to say to John Fain on ABC Radio this morning.
Why is it being called a PPP if it's underwritten by Treasury? It's not really a PPP, and wouldn't it just be cheaper and simpler to build it as state infrastructure?
Well, it is a public-private partnership, and the question you've asked is, would it have been cheaper to build it as a public sector provided project? And as part of this project, we are required, or part of this process, we're required to establish a public sector comparator, which is a tool which tells us what it would have cost us to build this project if the public sector had assumed all of the risk and built the project itself. And the public sector comparator tells us that either of these bids, both the Aquasure bid, which is the bid the government has accepted, as well as the Basswater bid, were well below the public sector comparator. So that's the guarantee that the public is getting value for money from the involvement of the private sector in the delivery of this project. There will be new renewable energy projects generated as a consequence of the consortium will make that clear through the purchase of their renewable energy credits.
You don't know? Well, you can't tell us?
Well, it will become clearer over time. They will also be purchasing renewable energy credits as part of the process, and that's the public's guarantee that the power that's used, the energy that's used to power this plant has been offset by the purchase of not just renewable energy, but renewable energy in addition to the targets that the government had already set.
Can you guarantee that consumers' water bills will only increase by the state at 100% over 5 years?
We've said that over the next price period, bills will double, but not more than double. We reiterate and reaffirm that guarantee. The Essential Services Commission has reaffirmed that. In fact, the price increase will be a little bit less than that. And as I mentioned earlier, by reference to the public sector comparator, that both bids came in well below the public sector comparator, and that's a guarantee also that the price impact of this project will not only be less than the full doubling of water prices, but in fact will be less than if the government had been forced to deliver this project ourselves.
Well, Tony Shepherd is the chairman of the consortium chosen to build the desalination plant. I spoke with him earlier. Tony Shepherd, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tamara. Nice to see you.
How many desalination plants has your company been responsible for, and why is this one different?
The technology provider to our consortium is Degremont, a French company. Degremont has provided hundreds of desalination plants throughout the world. In fact, I think it's the world's leading provider of desalination plants. They've done the plant recently in Perth, which is operating very successfully. The differences in this one, I guess it's a modern plant, state of the art. The design and integration into the local environment is different. And the fact that we have to build such a large plant in a very short time is also different. Finance
has obviously been a key issue. Whose idea was it for the government to go the lender of last resort?
Well, obviously with the GFC raising all of this debt, and equity was an issue for us. Having raised all of the debt, the banks were concerned about that part of the debt that they wished to syndicate, and we took that to the government as a suggestion, and the government adopted it. We think it's a smart way of getting around the issue, but we're confident that the banks will in fact be able to syndicate that debt.
It's $4 billion worth. Is it true that you plan to offload most of that?
Well, no, I think it's about $1.7 billion that has to be syndicated of that $4.
So when would you need to finalise your financial arrangements?
By financial close, which is in about 2 months' time.
The price of the project is now being put at $3.5 billion. Will that be the total cost?
That's the total cost of the construction of the plant. On top of that, we'll have things like interest during construction and company costs.
So what other sorts of costs are associated with completing the project that aren't included in that figure?
Well, mainly interest during construction.
And how much would you expect that to?
Well, I think The total funding will be 4.8 billion, so the difference between the 3.5 and the 4.8 is associated with the financing of the project.
Over and above the cost of building the project and getting it up and running, how much will it cost to run each year?
I haven't got the exact number at my fingertips, but it's into the hundreds of millions a year, including the cost of power.
You've struck a deal that allows the government to order as much or as little water as it needs. How do you make a profit in that circumstance?
Well, we get paid for having the capacity available, and obviously we get paid for actually producing the water. So the government has the flexibility as to how much water they want us to produce, but obviously we have to service our capital in the meantime and keep the plant in good operating condition, and we get compensated for that.
Are you free to take orders from other customers?
No, we're not. No, we can only supply the Victorian government.
So how will you make a profit if we have a big downpour in Victoria and we're set for water?
Well, we certainly take some risks on that, but if you look at the state of the dams at the present time, at less than 30% capacity, it's highly unlikely that this desalination plant will not be running, you know, in a maximum condition for quite a while, in my view.
Roughly how much will a megalitre of water cost?
We can't disclose that as yet. This will be disclosed after financial close when our contract is published.
Why can't you disclose that?
Because the government has asked us not to until the contract is disclosed to the public. The price is not exactly finalised until we reach financial close. There can be some slight variations in the meantime. So.
And what's the price dependent on?
The things that might vary in the meantime is the rate of interest and things like that might vary over this period of time, but relatively minor. I mean, we're talking marginal changes, but the government prefers to release the details of the contract in one go after financial close, and I think that's sensible.
It's been reported that the desal plant will produce more than 1 million tonnes of greenhouse gases each year. Is that irrespective of how the power to run it is generated?
That is a hypothetical figure that you're discussing.
More than 1 million tonnes?
Yes, that's just purely hypothetical, because the energy that we use, the energy we use in the plant to produce desalinated water is renewable energy, which by definition doesn't produce carbon.
So
I disagree with the number. Yeah.
So you can't tell me what the projected emissions would be?
We will be carbon neutral. This plant will be carbon neutral.
So what's your time frame? When do you think you'll be turning the taps on?
December of 2011 is the target, is our contractual commitment. So that's a very tight schedule for a plant of this size.
And will you be operating at capacity by that stage, or will it be a gradual run up to?
We'll be getting close to capacity by then.
So when do you think you'll hit capacity?
We're hoping to get it by then.
Tony Shepherd, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.